Hello! Welcome back to Lady Love Said Reads. My name is Jessica and this is my February 2025 reading wrap-up. If you are new here, welcome. If you're not new, welcome back. It's wonderful to have you here. I typically read books that fall into one of two categories, the first being dark and twisted, and the second being cozy, light, and whimsical. Since I do read some dark and twisted books, please do make sure to check your trigger warnings before picking up any of the books that I mention. I don't share triggers on my channel because I think they can be spoilery. So if you have any concerns about specific triggers, I recommend utilizing the app Storygraph. I read books from all kinds of different genres, the main ones being fantasy, nonfiction, literary fiction, mystery, thriller, horror, romance. I think that covers the majority of them. I read from all age ranges from middle grade to YA to adult. And I also rate my books on a 5-point scale. So 5 stars is like best of the best, new favorite. 1 star is it's problematic. Anything that is a 3-star or higher, I do recommend. And the last thing to note here in this little segment is that I do film my wrap-ups in multiple filming sessions. So you're going to see changes in lighting, outfits, angles, etc. I apologize in advance if that bothers you. That's just what works for me in getting through filming this video. Let's go through February stats. I read 12 books and 3,922 pages. My average rating was 3.7. For genres, I had 2 contemporary, 2 fantasy, 2 horror, 1 memoir, 2 mystery, 1 romance, and 2 thrillers. Genre can overlap, so if those numbers don't add up to 12, that's why. 5 of the books that I read were part of a series, and 7 of them were standalones. For target audience, I read 8 adult, 3 YA, and 1 middle grade. 4 of my authors were marginalized authors in some way, be it BIPOC author, LGBT, etc. 3 of them came from my own shelf. So at the end of the month, I have read 42.2% of my own books, which is an improvement from January, because January is at 41%. So I'm happy about that. That also means that I'm up to 4 books out of 20 for my Read Your Shelf challenge, where I'm not buying any books until I've read at least 20 of the books that I already own. 1 of the books came from KU. None of them were on my ebook collection or from my ebook collection. I read all of the books on my February TBR. I just didn't finish Bloodmarked. I did start it though. When I talk about the books that I read for the month, I like to play the game MASH. MASH is a numbers game we played in the 90s that predicts your future, like who you'll marry, what kind of house you'll have, what you'll do for your job, etc. And so I have 4 categories of MASH, and I draw 4 books per round. The 4 categories are house, and I talk with that about what setting I would want to be a part of the 4 that I draw. Category is romantic partner, or who my crush was in the story. The 3rd category is friend or family group, so which friend or family would I want to be a part of. And then the 4th category is job. Of the 4 that I draw, what job would I want to do? So let's go ahead and draw the first round. Based on the number of books I have in this month's wrap up, I'll be able to do 3 complete rounds. The Republic of Birds by Jessica Miller. Happy Ever After at Puddleduck Farm by Della Galton. Punch Me Up to the Gods by Broome. And A Killing Cold by Kate Alice Marshall. Punch Me Up to the Gods by Broome. This is an adult memoir. It's 250 pages and was published in 2021. I gave this one 4 stars. This is about Brian's life as a queer Black man, and he traces his childhood on up through adulthood. It covers a lot of pretty hard-hitting topics like assault, discrimination, misogyny, racism, homophobia, drug use and addiction, complicated relationships, toxic masculinity. It's a really good book. It's very hard-hitting. So definitely check your triggers for it before getting into it, and know it's not a happy story, but it's definitely an important story. And you will learn a lot about this person's experiences being a Black gay man in the United States. I gave it 4 stars. If you like memoirs, like hard-hitting memoirs, if you like stories about gender and sexuality, if you like stories that illustrate intersectionality, and if you've read and enjoyed the book Hijab Butch Blues by Lamia H., you might like this one. For MASH, I picked Job because he's a writer. A Killing Cold by Kate Ellis Marshall. This is an adult thriller. It is 304 pages and was published in 2025. This is about, forgot her name, Theodora. So it's about Theo. Theo is engaged to Connor. Connor comes from a really wealthy family, and he's, I don't know what that was. He's taking her to their winter cabin estate, basically, to meet the family, and things start going very wrong when they're up there. It's an isolated setting in the mountains. It's cold, like freezing cold. It is a killing cold. And a big part of this story is that Theo cannot remember a lot of her early childhood. Her memories are really blurry, fuzzy. She just doesn't remember much, particularly around this traumatic event that happens. And when she gets to this location with the family, this estate, she finds a photo of herself as a child that shows she has been there before as a child. And that is the premise of this sort of mystery. I didn't love this. I didn't think it was on par with Kate Ellis Marshall's other work. The family felt like they just had pretty stereotypical rich family secrets and drama. And the mystery itself felt a little bit tropey at times. One thing that I did really love was the setting. I love anything set in a winter, frigid, cold, freezing snow, ice setting. So I did really like that. I liked getting to kind of live on that mountain with them for a while. And I also did enjoy the prose. Her writing is still very quotable in this book, and so the prose itself is lovely. It's one of her strengths as a writer. But overall, this story just didn't hit for me. It just didn't land in the way that her other books have. I gave it 2.5 stars. Would you like this? So you might like this if you like wintry settings yourself, if you like stories set where the characters end up isolated. You might like it if you like an unreliable narrator, because her memory issues make her a bit unreliable. If you liked Rock, Paper, Scissors by Alice Feeney, you might like this. I read this as part of Jante's Inferno. It was the only thing that I read for Jante's Inferno, which is a readathon hosted by janagaton. It also counted as a book read from my shelf, and I buddy read it with my friend Hannah. For MASH, I picked Crush because Connor in this is crushable. I can't say more than that without spoiling things, so we'll just leave it at that. Do with it what you will. Happy Ever After at Puddleduck Farm by Della Galton. This is book 5 in the Puddleduck Farm series. It's 325 pages and was published in 2024. This is a slice of life, cozy adult contemporary read. Some folks would say it is chick lit. I don't like using that term chick lit, and I just like to call them like cozy contemporaries. And it focuses on Phoebe, who is a vet, and just her day-to-day life and her relationships with friends and family and romance. And it also follows some of the other characters that live in the town. It really is, it's just a slice of life. I read these books because they're cozy and they're soothing, and it just really relaxes me and makes me feel safe to read this series. In this book, there was something particularly traumatic and sad that happened that definitely bummed me out for one of the characters for a while, but it did end on a happy note. And so you do leave the book still feeling that like warm and safe and cozy feeling. I gave it 3 stars, and this counts as a finished series on my SAS list. So this was one of the series that I wanted to finish and wrap up in 2025. Now I can check that off my list. Would you like this? You might like this if you like cozy stories, if you like pastoral settings, like in the country on farms and with animals and small towns and things like that. You might like this if you enjoy a small town romance. For MASH, I picked Friend or Family Group because I would love to be a part of this community. They are so loving and kind to each other. There are some conflicts, but they work through them in healthy ways. It's just beautiful. The Republic of Birds by Jessica Miller. This is a middle grade Slavic wintry fantasy. It's 279 pages and was published in 2020. So this book is about Mia, I forget her name. This book is about Olga, and Olga's family is sent up north to live near the Republic of Birds. So the humans are separate from birds in this universe. The birds have their own kingdom, and it's because there was like this war between the humans and the birds. And so her father gets in trouble and they get sent to live at the border. And there's this like observatory where they like track communications with the birds and that kind of thing. One day the birds kidnap her little sister. So she goes on this adventure to rescue her sister from the Republic of Birds. And it is so good. It is so good. This was my favorite book of the month. It's just like the vibes, the ambiance. There is Slavic lore in this. So we get Baba Yagas, we get firebirds, and we get fun characters that feel like real people who you just fall in love with. There's a magical school. She packs so much into such a short book, and it's all well done. Like the pacing feels perfectly fine. Like it doesn't feel rushed and it doesn't feel slow. Like it's just a perfect little wintry Slavic middle grade fantasy. Like I can say nothing wrong about this book. I loved it so much. It is a new all-time favorite middle grade for me, and I gave it 5 stars. I read this as the book that I read for Polarathon, which is a readathon hosted every winter by Jade at jadeyraereads, where she raises money to help support climate research and polar bears. This was also the Lovestead Buddy Read selection for the month of February. And it was a book from my shelf. Would you like this? If you like wintry Slavic fantasy middle grades, you would like this. If you liked The Castle of Tangled Magic by Sophie Anderson, you would like this. If you liked A Wolf for a Spell by, who wrote that? Kara Sutton, you would like this. For MASH, I picked Setting because the setting is it's everything. Let's draw the next round. The Invocations by Krystal Sutherland. Wrote Me In by Kayla Grosse. Espresso Shot by Cleo Coyle. And The Hobbit by J.R.R. Tolkein. Wrote Me In by Kayla Grosse. This is book 2 in the Cowboys of Nighthawk series. It's 408 pages and was published in 2024. This is an adult cowboy romance. And this picks up from the first book, which is Rein Me In, and it follows Cade and Presley's story. I read this as part of a new vlog series I'm doing on examining if I just read romance wrong, and that's why I dislike so many romance stories. So I read it for that, and I'll have more detailed thoughts on the book when I post that vlog. I gave it 4.5 stars. This also counted as a finished series for my SAS list and was a book that I read on KU. Would you like this book? You would like this book if you enjoy a cowboy romance. If you enjoy a romance with some heavier themes like addiction, depression, anxiety, difficult family dynamics, etc. You might also like this if you enjoy a small town romance. For MASH, I picked Job. I would want to be a ranch hand. The Invocations by Krystal Sutherland. This is a YA horror. It's 400 pages and was published in 2024. This is about a serial killer that's hunting down women who've had an invocation. And an invocation is when a witch puts an invocation on their skin, and that invocation gives them a particular power. And so the serial killer is murdering women who've had the invocation and cutting out their invocation and stealing that power. And then there are 3 young girls that end up getting together to try to figure out what's going on with this scenario. This book talks about a lot of themes around misogyny, especially about witch hunts, how witch hunts were really just an excuse for men to kill women. A lot of other themes in this, and there is sapphic relationships and romances going on. I really loved this book. I gave it 4 stars. And would you like this book? You might like this book if you like stories about witches. You might like this book if you like body horror. There's a lot of really good body horror. You might like this book if you enjoy sapphic stories. If you read and enjoyed Horrid by Katrina Leno, you might like The Invocations by Krystal Sutherland. For MASH, I picked Friend or Family Group. I would love to be friends with this trio of young women. They're just amazing. Espresso Shop by Cleo Coyle. This is book number 7 in the Coffee House Cozy Mystery series. It's 350 pages and was published in 2008. And in this mystery, it centers around a couple that are getting married and someone is going after the bride. And that's the most I can tell you about it without being spoilery, since it is book 7 in a series. I enjoyed this. I gave it 4 stars. The mystery really had my head spinning. I didn't know what was coming next. I didn't know who did what. It was a very complex mystery, and like every chapter there was a new component added, and it really had just this head spinning effect in the best kind of way. So I gave it 4 stars. This is one that I read for Cozy It Up February, which is a readathon hosted by Mr. Francy at Mr. Francy Reads. It was also part of my SAS list. It was one of the series that I wanted to continue working on this year. So I've read a book in this series and can check that off the list. Would you like this book? You would like this book if you like cozy mysteries. If you like cozy mysteries that are a little bit more gritty. Cozy mysteries that tend to focus a bit more on the mystery side and bridge a little bit into thriller category. You would like this if you like books set in New York City, or if you enjoy learning about coffee, because a huge part of this series is set in a coffee shop, at this shop where they make this like cutting edge kinds of coffees that they roast and things like that. So you learn so much about coffee, and I love that. If you like the cozy mystery series Killer Coffee by Tanya Kappas, you might like the Coffee House Mystery series by Cleo Coyle. For MASH, I picked Romantic Partner, Mateo. I'm just Team Mateo in this book series. Last in this round, we have The Hobbit by J.R.R. Tolkien. This is technically book 0, I think, in what people are calling the Middle Earth series. It's the prequel to the Lord of the Rings trilogy. It's 366 pages and was published in 1937. Considered classic fantasy. Some would categorize this as middle grade or YA. I think it's more YA. As a middle grader, I would have had a really hard time comprehending this, but some folks do feel like it is middle grade. I read this as a buddy read with my friend Amy, and it is also part of my SAS list with a series that I wanted to try out this year. I enjoyed this. I thought it was a fun time. I think it's a really good setup to the Lord of the Rings trilogy. We get to see the ring in this. We get to see a lot of the most important characters like Gandalf and Bilbo. There are some other characters in this that I absolutely loved. One of them was Bjorn. And I don't know if Bjorn comes back in the Lord of the Rings trilogy, but he's like a werebear. He turns into a bear at night. And he lives on this, basically a little farm, like a small farm with a bunch of horses and flowers and bees, and I want to go spend a vacation or a winter holiday with Bjorn at his little farm. I just loved that character. I gave this book 3.5 stars. Would you like this book? You might like this book if you like classic high fantasy. You would like this book if you like the Lord of the Rings series or the Lord of the Rings movies even. I do think this is a little bit more accessible to read than the Lord of the Rings series. So I think if you've never read them, you've seen the movies and you want to read them, this is a really good place to start to sort of gradually work your way into the world. If you like fantasies that are a bit more slow moving, you might like this. For MASH, I picked setting. This is a setting I'd love to be in and just explore, especially the little Hobbit village. I would fit right in with hobbits, absolutely. Here we go with the last 4. So this will be our last round. And the rest of the books that I read for the month. All My Rage by Sabaa Tahir. So Thirsty by Rachel Harrison. Home is Where the Bodies Are by Jeneva Rose. Death with a Dark Red Rose by Julia Buckley. This is kind of a tough one. I don't want to do anything in some of these books. All My Rage by Sabaa Tahir. This book is I just said 37. It's not 37 pages. This is a kind of hard-hitting young adult contemporary literary fiction. It was published in 2022. This follows Salihuddin and Noor and their teenagers. They're really good friends. They grew up together, but their stories are tragic and bad things keep happening to them. So Noor lives with her uncle who saved her from an earthquake in Pakistan. But her uncle is pretty abusive, psychologically, emotionally. And then Salihuddin, his dad is a drunk and his mom dies. And she dies like early in the book. And his family owned a motel and the motel is going under. So he's having to figure out like how to keep the family business and ends up having to make some choices that he later regrets in an attempt to keep the family business. And it's just bleak. Like, this story is so bleak. I have never read A Little Life by Hana Yanagihara, but I feel like it's comparable to this one. It's just, it ends on just a sliver of hope. Like, just a sliver. Not a lot. You don't get a lot of good, happy feelings in this book. And I really struggled to figure out what I wanted to say about this book and how I actually feel about it. And my final conclusion is just that I loved this book just as much as I hated this book. I loved this book because I do think it tells some important stories, but I also hated this book because I felt like it was a little melodramatic, a little overdone and heavy-handed on the trauma. That being said, I gave it 4 stars. Would you like this? You might like this if you like hard-hitting contemporary literary fiction. You might like this if you're interested in reading books about the Pakistani immigrant experience. If you read and liked The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas, you might like this. For MASH, I picked Job because they interact with a lot of teachers. This is a stretch. It's really a stretch. They interact with a lot of teachers, so I would be a teacher. Home is Where the Bodies Are by Jeneva Rose. This is an adult horror. It's 256 pages and was published in 2024. The setup of this one is that this set of siblings, 2 sisters and a brother, their mom dies and they have to go through her estate. And as they're going through the estate, they find this They find this VHS tape where it documents a potential murder. So then they're trying to figure out what that means and what to do about it. I enjoyed this. I thought it was a fun time. The writing was really good. Like, the prose was really good. A lot of really quotable moments in this book. I thought that the plot was just okay. The characters were pretty well done. Would you like this? You would like this if you enjoyed the book No One Can Know by Kate Ellis Marshall. I think Jeneva Rose's writing is really comparable to Kate Ellis Marshall's writing. I gave it 3.5 stars. For MASH, I picked Setting. Now hear me out. I picked setting because there are flashbacks in this book, and they flash back to like the late 90s, early 2000s, which I was like a teenager during that time. And so it was like a really great time in the US. So that's what I would flash back to and be in the setting of. I know, I'm really having to stretch it, the mash on these. I'm really having to stretch it. So Thirsty by Rachel Harrison. This is an adult horror. It's 304 pages and was published in 2024. This is a vampire story. And it's about these best friends that go on a little mini vacation out into this cabin. And they end up running into a group of vampires at a party. And things go from there. It was a fun ride. It didn't feel like anything special to me. I gave it 3 stars. Would you like it? You would like it if you're just looking for a book that's like a fun time, a fun vampire time that you don't have to think too much about, that you can just sit back and enjoy, and it's a really quick read. For MASH, I picked Romantic Partner. So, because I didn't want Friend or Family Group. So it was between Friend or Family Group and Romantic Partner for this book. I'm like, I don't, the group of people in this, I don't know. But there is a vampire in this that is crush-worthy. Death with a Dark Red Rose by Julia Buckley. This is book 5 in the Writer's Apprentice series. It's 304 pages and was published in 2020. I read this as part of my SAS list. It's my goal to finish this series this year. So I just have one more book to read and I can check it off the list. It was also a book that I read from my shelf. It's an owned book from my owned TBR. And I read it for Cozy It Up in February, hosted by Mr. Francy at Mr. Francy Reads. So in the setting of this one, there's this new company that's come to town called Plastisource. They're a plastic company. And then there's also a gentleman that's gone missing. So the main sleuth in this thinks that the two are connected. And I enjoyed this. The ending of it felt really action-packed and climactic. Like this was meant to be the end of the series, because it was meant to be the end of the series. It was after the series got canceled, like years after, that she ended up writing the 6th book under a different publisher. So it reads like the ending of a series. If you cannot get your hands on book 6, because that book's only available as an ebook, like you can't get a physical copy, you can't get an audio copy. So if you can't access that book, this does feel like the end of the series, and you can comfortably end it with this book. I gave it 4 stars. Would you like this? You would like this if you like cozy mysteries that feature writing and writing books. You would like this if you like cozies set in the Midwest. You would like this if you enjoy cozies that are a little bit more action-packed, and cozies that have a pretty good balance between the mystery and the cozy aspects. For MASH, I picked Friend or Family Group because the friend group in this is actually really healthy and lovely. Unlike the other books in this round. All right, so that'll do it for my February wrap-up. Have you read any of these books? If you did, what are your thoughts? Tell me down below. What was the favorite book that you read in February? If you're enjoying my content, make sure to like the video and subscribe to my channel. And if you're really feeling at home here, consider joining the Discord. Links to all of that are in the description box down below. If you just want to leave me an emoji to let me know you're here, go ahead and leave me a red rose emoji. And until next time, make sure that you continue to read good books, drink good coffee, take care of yourselves and each other. Bye!